40 years ago, when I first met Rupert Pupkin, in many ways I thought I was meeting myself. Rupert Pupkin, of course, being the protagonist of Martin Scorsese's dark comedy, The King of Comedy, suffering from delusions of grandeur. I did not quite have the same delusions, but I could match Pupkin's sense of sanguine self-belief. As the film, now regarded as one of Scorsese's best, celebrates 40 years this year, and as I reminisce about it, I'm immediately reminded of one extraordinary scene. The scene that struck me immediately, even while I was watching the film as a 23-year-old journalist for the first time, was one where Pupkin, played captivatingly by Robert De Niro, is daydreaming about his meeting with the movie's iconic talk show host, Jerry Langford, played superbly by the legendary Jerry Lewis. In that meeting, Pupkin, pathologically obsessed with Langford and with the ambitions of replacing him one day, is fantasizing about Langford telling him this.
At least once in his life, every man is a genius. And I'll tell you something, Rupe, it's going to be more than once in your life for you. It's going to be a number of times because you've got it. From what I've heard here, yeah, you've got it. And you're stuck with it. And I don't care if you wanted to get rid of it. You couldn't. It's always going to be there. Now, I know there's no formula for it. I just don't know how you do it. And I'm not curious, mind you, because I want to use the material. I want you to understand that. I'm just curious because I don't know how you do it. I really have to ask you that. How do you do it?
I think it's that I look at my whole life and I see the awful, terrible things in my life and turn it into something funny. It just happens. But what about the first few one-liners? Were they strong enough? I was a little...
Strong enough?
No.
If they were any stronger, you'd hurt yourself. They're marvelous, you daffy bastard. Leave them alone. They're beautiful. I remember a man said, listen to me. A man said something very profound some years ago, which I later originated. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Now, you want to know how I know it's so good?
Yes.
Because I envy you. I hate you, but I envy you because it's purity, it's marvelous, it's humor based on you. No one else could do it but you. I wouldn't lie. I wouldn't lie to you, Roop.
When I first saw that scene, I laughed out so loud, and this was before LOL was coined, that some in the audience glared at me. It was as if I were especially privy to some extraordinary humor that had eluded them. What I found brilliant about the scene is that it is playing out entirely in Pupkin's mind. The idea that De Niro's character is deluded enough to imagine that Lewis's character is telling him that he's going to be stuck with his genius was, to me, LOL gold. Beyond that, though, I found it both tragic and strangely captivating that someone could daydream something to the point of near insanity. The film was remarkably ahead of its time in terms of its focus on the dangers of celebrity worship and obsession, which are now everyday features of our lives. At the beginning of the decade of the 80s, though, it was so unusual that it seemed somewhat ludicrous to many. Pupkin's character was superbly fleshed out. I was particularly captivated by the qualities of him being at once obsequious and overbearing that De Niro manages to capture so well in his body language. As Lewis's obsessive fan, De Niro is both painfully reverential and solicitous, even while gradually becoming pushy, aggressive, and eventually dangerous.
And I'm thinking as I'm sitting here now, well, maybe this is my big break. This is my big chance. You know what I mean?
You don't just walk on to a network show without experience. Now, I know it's an old hackneyed expression, but it happens to be the truth. You got to start at the bottom.
I know. That's where I am, at the bottom.
That's a perfect place to start.
So will you please give your warmest greetings to the newest king of comedy, Rupert Pupkin.
His name is Rupert Pupkin. He lives in a world of make-believe.
Oh, Jerry, I love this guy. Always coming up with these great lines. I love him.
Nobody can remember his name.
Mr. Pipkin. Mr. Pupnik.
Mr. Puffer.
Rupert.
Pupkin, Pupkin.
But by 11:30 tonight, the whole world will know that Rupert Pupkin is the new king of comedy. Robert De Niro, Jerry Lewis, in a Martin Scorsese picture. The king of comedy.
Another area where the film is prescient, perhaps without consciously trying to be so, is in showing how a character like Pupkin, with at best next to no talent other than delusions of grandeur, feels he is entitled to both success and fame. That approach has now overrun countries and continents, with people seeking celebrity and fame with very thin or no talent. For Martin Scorsese, the film's disastrous box office performance was more than sobering. However, in the last 4 decades since I first watched it, it has not only aged well, but it has become a work Scorsese can be truly proud of as an auteur. The film's resonance for me at a personal level was in the limited but important context of being able to find someone on screen who was as sanguine in self-belief as I then was and am now. 4 decades hence, The King of Comedy is a riveting, if dark, feature that I would strongly recommend you watch.